Gem, and this is the first video in the Little Blue Pot blog, which will be talking about mental illness or mental health problems, depending on how you refer to it, learning about how we can understand our illness, and an exploration into what it's like to live with mental illness. I will be giving examples from my life to help you maybe identify with those examples and to kind of understand your own illness through my understanding. And hopefully this blog will become a place for us to all understand our illnesses together. So before I go into more detail about that, I just want to give an introduction to me, a brief history if you like, just to introduce myself and so you get a bit more insight about me. Okay, so I'll just very briefly, sorry, I'm rambling. So we'll talk about my childhood. This was somewhat stable to unstable. I was adopted when I was 2 days old, so I wasn't aware of my birth mother, but I was adopted into a very loving family. I was very close with my brother, my sister, and my mum. I struggled a bit with my dad growing up because of his tempers and his moods, but by no means was this an abusive or dangerous or unsafe childhood. Apologies if I ramble a little bit. This is the first video, so I'm just warming up. So my childhood was okay. Like I say, I had trouble with my dad, but in the last few years we've become closer, which has been really good. I was okay in my childhood, very happy, stable, like I said, and it wasn't until I went to primary school and realised that there were people out there who weren't actually very nice. And there was one girl at school, the Queen Bee, who picked on me and some of my other friends for many, many years. It even led on to secondary school. But I was a bit of a weird kid at school, did some weird things, but other than that, it was relatively stable, apart from some bullying. So going on to my teens, this was a much more complex time, and this is where things started to really develop and really change for me. I was, like I said, still was struggling with who I was. I didn't know who I was, and most of my life I'd been feeling like this, and it wasn't until my teens that things started to show. So things such as promiscuity. So I lost my virginity when I was very young, at the age of 15, to make someone love me, and of course that didn't work. I then did a few promiscuous things at school and ended up being bullied because of it. Cheated on some people. So the promiscuity started first, and then it kind of turned into more serious things like smoking, trying cigarettes, then trying cannabis, then moving on to the kind of harder stuff in my later teens. But it was mainly, I think, because of a lot of the trauma that was going on in my life. Like I said, I was bullied, but then I went out with a boyfriend whose name is John. Names have been changed. His name is John, and he was I think he was an alcoholic actually at the time, and I was 16 when I was with him, and he was psychologically abusive, emotionally abusive, and on the occasional time physically abusive. He actually raped me on one occasion, and yes, it was a very, very disturbed relationship, very off balance, very unstable for me, and I couldn't understand why I kept picking these horrible people. And as I say, I think the drugs then came in to help me cope with this. Sorry if I say a lot. So I think it was a very, very dangerous time for me because I just kept putting myself in more and more danger. I kept taking drugs, promiscuity. I developed bulimia, so I was very much obsessed with how I looked, like most teenagers are. But I think mine just was feeling a lot worse because it was making me not go to school, and it was making me very stressed and very depressed. In my teens, it was the first time I went to see a counsellor because of this boyfriend, John. Anyway, so that was kind of my teens, and then this carried on into my 20s, more and more struggling, more and more picking of the wrong men. Some were nice, but all in all of them were unsuitable for me in different ways, and all of them seemed to put some sort of negative feeling on me in different ways. But the last chap, he was called Ricky, and he kind of made John look like an angel, and Ricky kind of was the one that really broke me. I think I was already breaking, but he pushed me to that limit. I mean, at one point when I was working and I was with Ricky, I had to be signed off sick because I had a chest infection and shingles all brought on at the same time. And this is when my kind of drinking was kind of picking up a little bit, and I would make sure that there would always be a bottle of wine in the fridge, because I just felt very, very anxious and very stressed all of the time being with him. I was with him for 2.5 years, again, psychologically, emotionally abusive. So by the time of my mid-20s, I was becoming very, very broken. Trauma upon trauma. I mean, I was ill in hospital with a sickness, my parents divorcing, I had uni, so that was stressful. But, you know, so it was a real stressful kind of 15 years of my life. And it kind of never really stopped. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago, when I had my second breakdown, that I was given a diagnosis of having borderline personality disorder. Prior to that, I'd kind of accepted that I had depression and accepted that I had anxiety, but I hadn't really been living my life with that acceptance, so I was still putting myself in situations that would cause me stress and depression. So like I say, by the time my second breakdown happened, it was a real kind of wake-up call that my body had been living the wrong way. I'd been putting it through a lot of things the wrong way, and it was kind of my body's way of saying that's enough now. And at the time, I actually was in a stable relationship, the same relationship I'm with now. He's called Andy. Sorry, my brain is mush today. Yes, so his name is Andy. He actually got together with me about a year after Ricky, the emotionally abusive one, and he. Yeah, so after Ricky, it wasn't a year late. It was a year later, and I had a breakdown at work, and I was with Andy. But everything was fine, and I still had this breakdown. So again, like I say, this breakdown really kind of changed how I viewed everything. And it wasn't until that breakdown that I met with a psychiatrist and was given the diagnosis of having borderline personality disorder, as well as depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia, and aspects of PTSD. All of those things that I will be talking about in later videos to explain what each of those mean. But now I'm kind of pretty much up to date to where we are. So like I say, about 2 years ago was my last breakdown, and 18 months ago-ish was my last suicide attempt, and that's when I was last in hospital. Since then, I have been on a journey of recovery and well-being, and I'm now ready to, I feel, hopefully ready to start this blog to talk about mental illness, to help people to understand it, and again to show you what it's like to live with mental illness by me telling you, giving you examples from my life. And I think it's going to be, well, I hope this blog can be something of a journey and people can join along the way, and we can build a lovely, wonderful community of people who have mental health problems, or people who are interested in learning about them because they're a carer or someone they know suffers from mental health. So yes, so now I'm in recovery, and this has been hard and challenging because everyone expects you to be better, but with any illness it's you cope with it and you learn to understand it, and you work out how to tame that beast, how to work with it, be in control of it rather than it being in control of you. And I'm hoping that I can share that information with you. So just very quickly, I just want to say why it's called the Little Blue Pot. This is purely just because I've always felt that having mental illness makes you feel very trapped in a confined space that sometimes can be very, very flat and withdrawn, so it would stay with the lid touch tight, and other times maybe when things are bubbling over and things are getting stressful, the lid starts to bubble and maybe even blows off when the anger maybe reaches the top. So I felt that maybe this little blue pot kind of symbolises what mental health feels like, that, you know, there is this space around it, but sometimes we feel very confined. And also it's the idea that this perfect shape or this smooth shape is on the outside, but what's going on the inside? And I think a lot of the time that is like what mental health is. You don't really see it on the inside, and a lot of people are very good at hiding it. So finally, So that's kind of why the little blue pot is, and that's why I want to do this blog. But I just want to say finally that my mental illness doesn't define me. It is a part of me. Sometimes it's a part that I love, other times it's a part that I hate and makes me do things and say things that I don't agree with or like. But it is a part of me, and I've had to learn to live with it. Just like a diabetic needs to understand and medicate and cope with their illness with insulin or diet, we have to with our mental illnesses. And I'm hoping that this blog will go on a journey that will help you understand more on what it's like to live with a mental illness and what mental illness is and the challenges you can face with it. So I hope today's been a nice little summary. Apologies if it's a bit all over the place. I will be going into more detail about my past through each video. I will be sharing a bit more, which is why it's been very brief today. But the reason I've called it Who Am I is because I had struggled all my life with mental illness and didn't know who I was. But today I'm finally learning who I am, and now I can share this wonderful knowledge with you. So thank you for today. Thank you for watching. I hope today's video has been okay. I hopefully will see you again at the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you soon. Bye.